All right, we're going to go ahead and start recording. Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob Podcast. Jason here, joined by my buddy Alex across the pond over in Germany. We're going to dive into the markets and what's been going down over the past week. Obviously, quite a bit of news. The markets did respond in some degree. Nothing major went either direction, but quite a bit happening on Bitcoin with the runes drop. And then, of course, the relationship between crypto and NFTs as prices fluctuate has been something that's been causing prices, at least in the NFT market, to fluctuate. And we're going to dive into all that, plus batch mints, plus what's happening in the rest of the GoodFellas project on this particular episode. So Alex, what's going on, buddy? What are you seeing in the marketplace? How are things over in Germany?
Hey man, things are actually very good. I mean, I'm pretty glad to see some green on the markets today. Unfortunately, it's not like I can share any kind of breaking news because there's not too much happening. I mean, we have had a lot of excitement about the halving that was like a couple of days ago, and yeah, now it feels like people are still trying to position, like try to get their crypto portfolio ready. And yeah, it feels like everyone is expecting a little sideways movement now. And then maybe, let's see, the next leg up. What do you expect?
I expect the miners to, figure out how to sustain themselves at current prices. This is generally what happens with having, of course, the supply or the reward, I guess you should say, for mining a block of Bitcoin gets cut in half. So that means the amount of money that the miners can make per block gets cut in half, which generally dictates that the price of the underlying asset, in this case Bitcoin, has to go up, and it has to double just for them to keep pace with what they were making before. But before that happens, everything has to sort of settle out in the marketplace, and they have to allow for the market to respond to the supply. So my guess is that some miners will have to sell whatever Bitcoin they've been holding to get by in the meantime, which usually is what pushes the market sideways or slightly down. And then after that supply is exhausted, that's when most of the Bitcoin is in the hands of holders, and then the price trends back up. At least that's the way I understand it. So what I expect to have happen is kind of that. We're just going to go sideways for a bit, maybe slightly up. The only sort of different factor this time around is that we've got the ETFs buying. And so if the ETFs make up the difference in terms of, purchasing Bitcoin, it's going to be a faster path up than it would have been in previous halvings because we have so much more money going into that particular market. And Bitcoin right now is sitting at 1.3 trillion in market cap. I mean, it's far and away, it's like 3 to 4 times bigger than the number 2, which would be ETH. So if there's enough money sloshing around in the ETFs, the ones in the US, now the ones approved in Hong Kong overseas, plus the futures market funds in the US and also I believe in Canada. Plus, I think there's a couple more governments that are being pressured to buy Bitcoin. I think Switzerland, I just saw recently, is being pressured to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet, along with, of course, El Salvador, which did that a couple of years ago. It could be that we don't go down for very long or sideways for very long if these particular entities are looking for a good entry point. So if the understanding is that Bitcoin needs to double and there's only a finite supply at 21 million, some of these big dollar funds and governments might see this as an opportunity to jump in with a bigger buy. So we'll see what happens. But I think ultimately we go sideways for a little bit and then we start to trend up. And I think it's probably going to be, less of a curve than we've seen in the past, but still, I mean, if the story with crypto and Bitcoin is to survive, basically Bitcoin's going to have to hit 6 figures before the end of the year, maybe as much as 150,000. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I haven't really seen the newest data on how much the ETFs are buying right now. I know that in the beginning it was like insane numbers. We had like Grayscale was the one selling, I guess, and all the other ones had like an insane like buying volume. Um, and yeah, I mean, historically seen from the previous halvings, I think the sideways movement is going to be for like a couple of months until it's going to increase again, like in I think August, September. I know you've observed the previous halvings more than I did. So yeah, can we learn something from these times?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the biggest deal is just to be patient. It's kind of like the little Solana trade that I did, and even I got impatient with this. Like you just have to realize that nothing happens as fast as you want it to, especially if you're building a business or an organization or building wealth or building your body, building your mindset. Doesn't matter what it is. It's going to take time and investment for you to get what you want to get out of it. So I think anyone who is buying Bitcoin or any other crypto thinking that they're going to make 100% tomorrow is just fooling themselves. You got to be patient. You got to pick your entry points and you have to be smart about it. And, like I'll just use myself. Like I did something smart and I did something stupid with my Solana holdings, right? So the smart thing I did was when Solana was approaching 200, I sold about $10,000 worth. And then as the market fell, I started buying back in, and I started buying back in at like the 160s, thinking, okay, well, this is a good entry point. It's not going to give me a better entry point. But then it went back up and then it went back down and then it went into the 150s and then into the 140s and then into the 130s. And there was one day when it actually dipped down into like 125 US. And so if I had held more of that cash and been more patient, I would have had a much, much lower entry point with the profits that I'd already taken on that Solana, right? But because because you never know what direction the market's going and you really want to make sure that you get a better entry point, I just decided to put more in earlier than I should have, not following my own rule of being patient, right? So by the time it got down to 130 or 120, I just had a couple $1,000s left. I ended up buying a few tokens, no big deal. Still, it's all a win across the board, but it could have been a bigger win. Just comes down to being patient and realizing that everything cycles, right? And so if I had been watching the charts, I would have known that, 130 was potentially, like a 90% probability. But that's just the thing. Like, so just being patient, so looking for your entry points and your exit points if you want to trade. And if you want to build wealth, the only thing that you're doing is you're trying to buy right. That's the only thing you can do. You're going to make your money when you buy, not when you sell. And so at the end of the day, if Bitcoin gives you an opportunity or Solana gives you an opportunity or your NFT project gives you an opportunity at a much lower price, that's when you want to buy, not based on someone's hype cycle or someone's opinion, but based on your own goals, and that's really the thing that I think people should walk away with in all markets, like, because all markets operate on psychology, not necessarily, there's really nothing necessarily different between the way things trade other than human psychology. And it's always the same from year to year. So don't get caught in the trap of thinking it's got to happen now. Don't get caught in the trap of thinking this market is different from that market, because it's not. It's all run by humans, at least human psychology and human programming at the end of the day.
Today I actually read a tweet from someone who also looked at the previous halvings and who said like, hey, we're actually going through so much pain throughout the years, like every cycle is like 4 years. And we're going through so much pain through like so many emotions. His actual recommendation was like, whenever you want to hold crypto and just like take the major profits of it, like you're not going to buy the get the bottom, but if you want to take like the major profits, you just need to buy around the halving every time, and then you will be good. What do you think about that?
I mean, based on the charts, that's sound advice. I mean, just after the halving, if you're buying it down as it trends downward or sideways, it's generally not going to go any lower than that, based on, again, charts and history, of course, as we know, doesn't necessarily indicate the future unless all things are equal. And in this case, buying it around the halving, with the ETFs supporting the bottom of the market, I think it's probably a wise thing, because if there is a significant dip and big money can buy, they will buy, and that'll push the price back up. So yeah, I mean, I don't think you can go wrong if you look at charts and then you buy around the halving, assuming that history continues to, repeat itself at least every 4 years or every 210,000 blocks in the case of Bitcoin.
Yeah, but that's the problem, you know. I think you've mentioned it quite a lot of times as well, that the market is so young still. We've been going through like only three cycles of four cycles, and you know, you never know if it keeps repeating, you know. Maybe this will be the last one. Maybe we already, yeah, not thinking that we already have the top now, but who knows what's in like 2028 or 2029. So, and for me personally, like crypto is too much fun to like, you know, just let it go for 3 years and then jump in around the halving.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was some guy who, I forget his name, but some, trader on X or Twitter. I don't even know if he's still around, but basically he was saying, listen, just basically screaming at the top of his lungs in a video, basically telling people, listen, if you just listen to me, you're going to do great, right? And his philosophy was the exact opposite. It was, buy Bitcoin at the peak or close to the peak after the halving. Or I'm sorry, I got this backwards. So just like what you're saying, you buy at the halving, and then when it peaks, you sell everything basically, right? You're not going to time it 100% right every time, but if you bought at the halving and then you're selling at the peak or close to the peak, and then just wait for it to fall, just exactly what I did with Solana, and then rebuy it at the next bottom, and then you repeat that. So basically, like if you had done that on all the halving cycles, it was something like an 80% drop from the peak after each halving cycle, and then of course you've got 10x, 20x, 30x, 100x gains, depending on when you purchased your Bitcoin, like you could just kill it by selling at the top and then buying again at the bottom, selling at the top, buying again at the bottom. And, I think the only thing that changes really going forward is like the amount of the, what do you call it? The amount of supply becomes less of an issue for the miners as the halvings continue to get smaller and smaller. So like this time they're giving up, 3.125 Bitcoin, whereas in the past they gave up 6.25. In the past they gave up 12.5. Then they gave up 25. Right. So the amount of Bitcoin that they give up on each halving is smaller. So these market fluctuations ideally would trend to be smaller and smaller. So the opportunity for that is being lessened as Bitcoin matures. And this is true of any market, right? So it's true what you were talking about with the buys and the sells. And it's also true what this person was saying. If you buy and then you sell at the top and buy at the bottom, it still works. The question is, are you paying attention? And, can you really time it, at least get within 20 to 30% of the top or 20, 30% of the bottom?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you kind of mentioned it, like it's pretty difficult to hit the top. And I mean, we're all waiting for that big bull run. And if you look at previous bull runs, you see that, you know, imagine you had like $1, like one Bitcoin in the last bull run, and you know, the decision of selling 2 weeks later than your initial thought could have made a difference of like 15,000, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because the peak was sometimes like so, especially like the second spike was like for such a short time actually, and you know you do have a lot of setbacks on the chart, so there were probably a lot of times people thought like okay it is now at what was it, like 40K, then it went down to like 33 and many people probably sold and then it went up to 60 and you know I think like hitting the top cannot be the goal because most likely you will not hit it and you should not be unsatisfied just because you didn't. And yeah, that's why I feel like I'm not even sure what I'm going to do. Maybe if I have some kind of, you know, like DCAing upwards, you know. But yeah, let's see, man. I just hope that I definitely think that there will be a lot of noise on Twitter from, you know, these influencers saying like, hey, this is not the top yet, and others will say like, hey, this is a top sell, and people will be confused. And unfortunately, I have not followed that on social media like very intensively last time. But yeah, I'm almost a little scared of that time.
Yeah, that's natural and normal. I think at the end of the day, nobody knows anything. I mean, we're all basing, what might happen on what we think that history is dictating for us. And so no one really knows anything. I mean, you have to keep that in mind. We're all human. We're all fallible. No one has all the answers, and no one has a crystal ball. And so at the end of the day, you just have to look and see, all right, what's the trend that you're operating from, right? And so if you believe the Bitcoin story, which I tend to believe the Bitcoin story, which is, there's 21 million that can ever be created, and more people need solid banking around the world than ever before, right? So more than half the world is unbanked. And so if half the world can have access to a cell phone, but never have to go to a bank or visit an ATM machine to get cash, and they can transact on their phones, or not even use a phone, maybe they're transacting by text, which is also possible. I mean, at the end of the day, that's just such a valuable thing that it's almost impossible to stop, and I think governments, of course, don't want to give up their power to confiscate your wealth. But at the end of the day, if they can't stop it, then they can't stop it. So the Bitcoin story is, and then the promise of crypto is that you can transact privately without governments being involved, and you don't have to worry about your wealth being seized or stolen so long as you protect your private keys. And so that's really, the big thing here. That's the big, the big transaction when you look at it, the big curve. And so we've got 4 billion people who still need access to some form of banking. There's 21 million Bitcoin. Bitcoin is by far the most stable of the currencies. And at the end of the day, if you're concerned about your wealth, what are you going to buy if you're in, the middle of nowhere, but you have access to a cell phone and a cell phone tower? Well, you're probably just going to hold Bitcoin for the 1 or 2 times a year you go into town to transact with someone, right? For the rest of us, we're having fun with it. Like you said, it's like a game. It's number go up technology. It's gambling. It's good times. And, it's kind of fun to talk about these concepts. But at the same time, we all have bank accounts, and it's no big deal for us either way. But, when you start factoring in what's good for everyone, if the supply is hard capped at 21, and there's 8 billion people on the planet and growing, and over half of them are unbanked, they're going to want to hold some Bitcoin somehow, some way. So that necessarily dictates that the price of the asset has to rise. And then, of course, the subsequent tokens will follow. They follow Bitcoin every single time. At least the majors do. And so when I'm looking at it that way, I'm not really concerned about trading something like Bitcoin. I might trade a little Solana or, something like that. But I'm not really buying Bitcoin to make money on it. I'm buying Bitcoin to preserve my wealth and to keep pace with inflation and make sure that as I, get older, I've got security, which is kind of a weird thing to say for a technology that's only, 15, 16 years old. But the truth is, Bitcoin is the result of 40 years of research. eCash, this idea of electronic cash came out in like 1982, and it just wasn't perfectible then. There was 30 to 40 years of experimentation before we got to Bitcoin. So yeah, Bitcoin is 15, 16 years old, but this idea is 50 years old. And so I don't think it's going anywhere. I could be wrong. I would not gamble someone else's money on it, but I'm putting the majority of my savings into it. And the reason that I'm doing that is because I just believe in the story. And so I buy the story that I believe in. And I think everyone should do that. You should put your money where your mouth is. Like, whatever you believe to be true is where your money is ultimately going to flow. And, for like I said, Bitcoin, I'm not trying to trade it. I'm not trying to get rich off it. If it goes up, fantastic. But if it preserves my wealth, so much the better. And, I'm not going to, worry too much about it. So that's my perspective on it. But, at the end of the day, everyone has to look at their own situation and say, okay, well, why am I buying this in the first place? It's just like the NFTs in GoodFellas. Like, I'm buying NFTs because I believe in the value of beautiful art. but also in the value of tokenization and what someone with a committed group of people can do with tokenization. And so that's where the value is for me. I'm not trying to trade NFTs or, this, that, the other thing. I just think that, because there's so much wealth in like the first world, people have so much disposable income and a lot of free time, that there's a lot of speculation around the excitement that comes with FOMO and the excitement that comes from seeing somebody win big on a particular trade. Everybody wants to participate, and people are, they're willing to put money at risk. But that's not the same thing as buying an asset that you want to use to preserve your wealth. And I don't think a lot of times people think about that. They're just like, well, I've got this extra money here. I'm going to gamble it on this thing over here that I don't know anything about. Well, that's never smart. You should never do that. So from my way of thinking, like Bitcoin is the store of value. Ethereum is the world's computer. Solana is good for art and business. And the rest of it is just also rands. And I don't really care.
Yeah, I think you definitely have a very healthy attitude about all that. I feel like the problem is that most people who get into crypto for the first time, they get attracted by the stories of people who made like a pretty big amount of money. And that's why they try to imitate that and get in here and are willing to, um, yeah, risk their money for profits and for gains without even checking what Bitcoin and what the whole like technology of blockchain means. Yeah, but talking about Bitcoin all the time, we can definitely run into runes now. Yeah, I've seen when I checked Magic Eden today, I saw that runes is trading for the rune stones are trading for 0.036 Bitcoin, which is a decrease of around 60%. Jason, let us know why.
You know why, man. I mean, it's again, Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner, right? Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. The incentive was to hold the runestone until, you got locked in for the next drops. And as soon as everyone knew they were locked in for the next drops, they started selling this shit like funnel cakes at the state fair because everyone could use a few $1,000, right? Like, I mean, what's wrong with picking up a few mortgage payments, right? And so if you can pick up a few mortgage payments and not hold some shitcoin, no matter if it's on Bitcoin or not, you're going to do that. So you're seeing that right now, like this massive dump. These people who are holding runestones like, oh my God, runestones is the next big thing. I mean, no, it's not. It's never going to be. It can't be. There's no use for it. There's no practical application for it. Everything that you would do with a runestone, other than just hold it for historical value, which I think is probably the biggest thing, can be done by another chain or another token and is already being done better. So, with Bitcoin, you don't need an exchange layer because you have Lightning. The Lightning layer allows you to transact in small sums. You don't need meme coins to do that. You don't need to run all these transactions through Bitcoin. There's no inherent value in any of these things other than the historical value. And so if someone's going to say, listen, I'll give you more free money if you just hold this till a certain date, then that's what people are going to do. And then they're going to race to get out. And that's what you're seeing right now. So I'm seeing transaction after transaction going through right now. The price is still falling. It's down now to 0.034. And probably by the end of the day, it'll be in the twos. And then who knows where it goes from there. But this is just typical hype cycle stuff. And it doesn't matter if you're on Solana or ETH or Bitcoin. Hype is hype and it's not sustainable. And so, people do what they're incentivized to do. And this is, in this case, people are incentivized to sell because you can still pick up 0.03 Bitcoin. That's a nice chunk of change. And I already got my other drops. And so, hey, let me get rid of this, up my cash position, pay a couple mortgage payments, relax a little bit and enjoy the ride. So no surprise here. I think we called this in the last spaces. I think we said this was going to happen. And sure enough, this is what's happening.
Yeah, man, that was actually pretty predictable. The question is, will it ever like I don't think it's ever going to go back to where it was. I think it kind of depends on how the meme coin is going to perform. Um, But yeah, I still feel like, recommending people staying away from. I mean, you mentioned it. A lot of people got a lot of money, but wherever people make money, people have to lose money as well, unless you get it like just airdropped. And but I actually like when I saw it dropping that hard, it was like for a blink of an eye, I was like, should I like should I get in now? Maybe it's like just a heavy dip, and yeah, but I like totally get rid of that thought again. Um,
Got smart fast, huh?
yeah, I got smart pretty fast, but um, I see so much volume there still, and so many buys that. It looks like I'm not the only one having that thought, but it's just pure gamble right now. As you mentioned, maybe we're at point oh 0.01 tomorrow. Maybe we'll be back at point oh 0.08 tomorrow, depending on what Leonidas is going to tweet. But yeah, I could actually do a coin flip and bet on that, and would like the outcome would be the same.
True. I mean, I think these are pretty predictable in terms of the incentives, right? What's the incentive to hold a runestone right now? All right. If you've already got your sort of whitelist or your wallet listed on the next drops, why do you care about runestones? I think the only reason to really care is it's a bit of history, right? It's like the first hint at a historic event on a potential world changing technology, which is there's value in that, right? But then you have to realize there's also 112,400 of these things in existence. So if there's 112,400 of these things in existence and you hold one of them, what are the chances that one of the other 112,399 people don't want to sell for a less price than you, right? So I mean, it's not really about money at this point. I think it's just about history, and it'd be really cool to own a piece of history. But I think what I would do is just buy a piece of history 6 months from now when it's like 0.001 or something like that, and not really worry about it. Thanks for the $2,000 or $3,000, Leonidas. I appreciate that. But I'll buy the rune stones when the hype is over, and then just sit on that piece of history for as long as I can.
Yeah, I also feel like, the incentive now is he's going to hype up the next meme coin probably once he's done with the dog coin. But the second one is probably not going to perform as good as the first one. So, you know, I also think that you will get a very like a much better opportunity to buy in the near future, in the maybe in the next couple of weeks or month from now. You can buy it a lot cheaper, and then you can be proud to own a little bit of history, as you mentioned.
Yeah, the interesting thing here is I think Casey and Leonidas have both done a tremendous service to the market as a whole. And what I want to say here is it has nothing to do with the meme coin itself, but in the way that this was executed, from the get-go, this was pitched as gambling. It wasn't pitched as, hey, we're going to do this amazing thing and this coin is here forever and blah blah blah. It was like, no, you could lose everything. We're having fun with number go up technology. Okay, so that's the first good thing. There was a bit of honesty injected into what's happening. Okay, great. And then as we got to the halving, the runes protocol was released at block 840,000. Okay, so this marks the fourth halving. And basically what happened because of all of the interest in runes and runestones, the amount of mining revenue that was generated over those few blocks just before and just after the halving was insane. There's something like $100 million just in mining revenue, and 80% of it was, I think, attributed to runes, which is insane, right? So if you're a miner and you were able to pick up some of these blocks and process these transactions, that gave you a lot of runway to deal with the halving or the loss of revenue that comes from the halving by bolstering your mining revenue way more than you ever would have made just by processing blocks, right? And at one point, I mean, I didn't watch it that closely. I was out and about and working on the Jeep and having a little fun this weekend. But at one point, there were blocks that were being processed for 2,877 sats per VByte. Okay, that's almost 3,000 sats per VByte, which is insane. And so for those of you guys who can't register that, right? Like, every Bitcoin is broken into 1,000,000 sats. And so when you process a transaction on Bitcoin, you pay a small fee, whatever that is. And the fee is paid relative to the size of the transaction. So unlike, a chain like Solana, where you can put a 4 or 5 megabyte file in a file storage somewhere and pay a couple pennies, for Bitcoin, if you were going to inscribe 4 megabytes, which is almost, which basically hits the block limit, you would pay 2,000 sats for every single virtual byte of that file. So multiply that times hundreds, times thousands, and people were paying tens of thousands of dollars per megabyte to get into the next block, which is just unbelievable, just absolutely unbelievable. So they did this massive favor by basically giving a lot of funds to the miners that they could then use to, sort of ease into this halving more than they would in the past, where it was just a straight, okay, now your profits are cut in half. So that was actually a tremendous service. It prevented a big drop. I think it prevents it in the other markets as well, because again, everything follows Bitcoin. So when you look at it from that standpoint, and then you look at, just to put it in perspective, like when we were minting the bosses in August of last year, I think we minted on the 5th or the 8th, I can't remember which, we were, inscribing for less than 10 sats per VByte. And then, after that, we were bringing bosses in for, I think he even got some for 2 sats per VByte or 3 sats per VByte at one point. To go a 2 or 3,000 fold increase over that is just unbelievable. So, $100 million worth of revenue just generated in fees. I don't think people can really fathom that. That's such a huge portion of market volume that happened on a single day that it's unfathomable for most people. You just line up the amount of money and you could never count it in your lifetime if you did it solo. So, thanks, Casey, thanks Leonidas. Appreciate you guys doing that. And now that that's happened, history's been made. I think owning a piece of history in the form of an inexpensive rune would be fantastic, but there's no value there past that now that the protocol is released. So really interesting to see and grateful for it, because I think it smoothed out the market, but hey, now it's on to bigger and better things.
If you had that money laying around, it wouldn't hurt you, would you be willing to pay that amount of money, that much of money to get into the first block? I know that because you just mentioned you would like to own a runestone, to own some history of Bitcoin. So do you feel like it's justified?
No, not right now. No, because the truth is, if you're one of these people who is a quote unquote sat hunter, like someone who's looking for rare sats, I think it's easier a lot of times to let other people do the legwork. Okay, so if someone's going to pay tens of thousands of dollars to get into the next block, or pay $100,000 for their project to get into the next block or whatever the thing is, you have to realize once the hype subsides, all that stuff will be available in secondary, and there'll be hard times in the future where people want to sell. And this is just a lesson that comes from the collectibles market, right? I collect comics and action figures as a hobby. And anytime the economy is tough, I can go into the marketplace and get a $5 comic for 50 cents, or a $25, $30 action figure for $2. And so again, you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. So at the end of the day, all these people who bought wrong, when you buy wrong, you can never correct that. It can never be corrected. So I think the better strategy is just to let the hype subside and see where it falls. And then if you want to hunt a particular sat from that block, you can. If you want to hunt a particular, rune or rune stone from that particular block, you can. But then once the hype is gone, the prices should basically fall as well. And if you're smart and you wait for the right time when people are hurting or the market is bad, because that's going to come again soon, then you can definitely pick that stuff up at a discounted rate, but and then you will have bought it right, and you can sit and feel good knowing that you're holding something that you bought right. I'm not sure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah, I feel like I'm probably not never going to be, how did you call it, a sad hunter? But yeah, definitely that definitely makes sense what you said. We've been talking a lot about Bitcoin and the halving and everything, and we have had a little surprise drop. You have actually been hardworking throughout the night, and we've had a little surprise drop for our holders. Yeah, maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So, obviously our project began on Bitcoin, and, we have an affinity toward Bitcoin. We do artwork on Solana, of course. Solana is perfect for the NFT market, for the tokenization market. There's certain things that Bitcoin just isn't designed to do very well, and speedy transactions for art is one of them. So it makes sense that we started with Bitcoin to sort of sift and sort the Solana, crowd, the flippers, to get them mostly out of the project and be left with a core group of collectors. And so, as a way to reward these guys and in honor of Bitcoin, I basically just sat down the night before and was just brainstorming ideas. What could we come up with to sort of throw out a little bonus mint for our holders to celebrate the event, to celebrate them, to give everybody a token of appreciation or gratitude for where we are in the market and for being with us, right? And so I just came up with this really cool design of one of our mail pieces holding a broken Bitcoin, like a Bitcoin broken in half. And then, of course, matched up all the colors so that everything was nice and bright. And then sort of surprise released it on the community on that particular day. So we had a drop that went live on the same day that Bitcoin halved. And of course, all that's marked on the Solana chain as well. So all those dates are recorded in history. And so those NFTs are now part of, the story of halving. Even though it's not a drop that we dropped on Bitcoin, it's a story of the halving as it relates to the date. And I feel like, of course, our collection, our 21's collection, is designed to commemorate, events and places and people throughout history that matter and have made a difference. And certainly Bitcoin is one of them. So, that was my thinking behind that.
Yeah, I really love the drop. I think the community enjoyed it as well. It was actually a surprise drop for me too, because you just sent it over to me prior to the drop. And yeah, I know we have been talking about that a little bit before the halving, like saying, hey, we could have some kind of drop, like cherishing the halving, and then you suddenly came up with one. Yeah, that was definitely great. Like I said, I think the community really enjoyed it. And yeah, what will be next? Next is going to be the batch mint. We still haven't set a date yet for that. I think we still need to discuss that a little bit. Um, and then we will have um, another artist incubator piece. But yeah, this is not the focus for now. We're focusing on the badge. And can we give the community any kind of time frame for that?
Yeah, I think so. This week is pretty stacked up. I've got some art I've got to get done, and I want to start bringing more artists in. I know we've got some people in the community who do artwork, and there's some people outside the community that do artwork, and I'm thinking that I have a person in mind that could do some really cool background work for us. But also, each time we do a batch, we do a new trait of some sort, whether it's a hand trait or or whatever. Like, it could just be anything, and to kind of keep the collection fresh and growing and evolving. And I was kicking around a lot of ideas, and I guess I can just sort of share some of these ideas along with the timeline. So basically, by the end of the month, first of next month, we want to be dropping the next batch. Bosses, of course, will get to eat first on that, and each batch, of course, gets a one of one, gets a underboss, a consigliere, and 5 capos. Again, these are all ranks in the family structure, that if you want to build a family, you want to collect those pieces. So that's obviously something that we drop every 100 pieces. every batch is 100 pieces, and each batch is a complete family, with the exception of the boss itself, because obviously the bosses were minted on Bitcoin and exist separately. So anyone holding a boss, you can build your entire family, and then of course collect all those ranks, have the chance to get a new one of one, capos, new hand traits, backgrounds, head traits, whatever we come up with. And then in that way, we continue to evolve the collection so that the art never gets stale. And one of the things that I wanted to mention here for those of you guys who are listening, I think would be super, super cool is, we have plans to mint up to 1,000 pieces. And I think it would be cool to have additions of these pieces within the same collection. We've not talked about this. This is the first time mentioning it to Alex as well. It's like, we've got the original sort of artwork that's coming through on the first 1,000 pieces and the bosses. But, when we get into the second 1,000 pieces, we could do like a second prints kind of a thing where we do a different style of artwork completely for the next 1,000 pieces. And then at 3,000, the next style could be completely different as well. And then each one of those could be like its own edition of artwork within the same collection, which I think would be a really interesting way to do a 10,000 collection. So, we haven't talked about that or made any commitments to that, but that's just one of the things that was running through my mind, because when I'm thinking of, the history of gangsters and mafia, and sort of the theme that we have with GoodFellas is like, you look back through time, you have like everything from the Tommy gun era, all the way through to today. And you've got all those different film styles and image styles from, dark noir to black and white to more realism, to more, like 1940s, like poster style and cartoon style. So there's 1,000 different styles that we could go into. And I feel like one way of sort of celebrating that and celebrating the evolution of the collection, and of course keeping it fresh for our people, is to potentially do something like that. Now, I've never even mentioned that before, so maybe I can just get your opinion on that real quick.
I actually wanted to say a lot of stuff to what you just said. So yeah, that's actually the beauty of our collection, that we can still make adjustments and think of what we want to do in the future with it. I mean, it's very cool that we are not stuck with decisions that we have made, like, I don't know, half a year ago or 1 year ago. I actually just looked up, when do we have our anniversary, man? I mean, I think we started in April last year, right? Or am I wrong? Or was it May? I know the mint was later, but what was the first time we met?
Oh, shit, that's a good question. I'll have to look and see.
We have to celebrate, man.
I
I am
know,
actually
that's
like
true.
scrolling up in the Goodfellas team chat now,
Yeah.
and I have to see that, man. It would be awesome to see like when we decided to start all that, and but I think it was back in April. But while I scroll up, I want to answer the question from guest user that he actually posted like 5 minutes ago in the chat in the pub. First of all, shout outs to you, man. I see you a lot around on spaces and everything. And yeah, he asked when the podcast will be up after we make it. And usually you should be able to listen to it on Tuesdays, as we record on Wednesdays, on Mondays. So yeah, we always try to upload it as fast as possible. And hell, man, our chat is so long; it takes years to get to the beginning. Um, but yeah, that would definitely be something that we need to celebrate in the future.
I
Oh,
like it, man.
I'm
Uh,
in August still, so yeah, I'll probably check it when we are down here.
Yeah, I like it. We'll have to do some sort of commemorative piece and remember the date.
Yeah, man, I feel like what most people still don't understand is, because I had that conversation with a friend who asked a lot about NFTs. He was pretty like familiar with what NFTs are, but he's not really in the space. And then he was like, "Okay, what you guys do?" I showed him some pieces, and then he was like, "Okay, what did you like mint so far?" And then I showed him like, "Hey, we got that collection, we got that collection, then we got batches. We have like 3 batches minted out, and everything was minted out pretty quick." And then he was like, "Oh, dude, man, you must have made like tons of money." And that's what people do not understand. Like, we are not paying ourselves at all, like so
Right,
far.
right.
Actually, we are even investing money. And I do, it's like nothing to like, you know, it's not that I want to like show people like, hey, we actually got some funds and we're not spending them. But it's the truth. We're not making it for the money. And a lot of people, a lot of projects claim to be like that. But we are here for 1 fucking year, like being online every day, talking to the community every day, and I feel like it's appreciated by the community. But yeah, still wanted to mention it as I had that conversation like a couple of days ago, and that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we're just building a little treasury and we're reinvesting into the project so that ultimately it can be a profitable project and not blowing it on stupid shit and, buying crap for ourselves. That's just not what we're about. So yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, we have to think about other people in the beginning, and in the end it'll all come back around.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so maybe for the final words here, I actually found the beginning of our thread, which was on April 24 last year. That's actually when we formed a group and talked about all the details. I think there was like some stuff in the old Art of Mob server, but um, yeah, do we want to agree on April 24, or do we want to take like maybe a later date, maybe the boss mint?
No, yeah, no, I think that's good. I think that's good, man, for sure. I think we roll with that, and we it's kind of funny coming up with that now, but yeah, no, I believe you. If that's when it was. That's when it was.
Okay.
And
I'm kind of begging for another opportunity to celebrate now.
yeah, I know. Hey, man, can you hold on 1 second? I just need to pause for a hot minute. Can you hold on just a sec?
Yeah, no problem. No
Okay, hold on
problem.
for just a second. Okay, sorry about that, man. A little
Yeah, it's all good, man.
minor emergency to take care of here real quick. But no, so April 24th, you said?
That was actually the first time we created the group, and yeah, we started like it was actually a pretty big text from myself. Um, yeah, that was April 25. I'm not sure if we had some conversations in the Art of Mob server before, but I know that there was another group before that, with all the other guys inside.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, we
Everyone,
definitely need to agree on a date in the future.
yeah, let's do that. I mean, I think it's kind of funny that it was April 24th because it's almost exactly with the Bitcoin halving. Kind of funny.
Yeah, true. True. Yeah, and other than that, I think we are through with the topics we had for today, right?
Yeah, I think so. I know that you had mentioned wanting to start talking about the artist incubator, but I think we are a couple weeks off from that mint, so maybe we should just keep that secret for now. What do you think?
Yeah, let's keep it secret for now. Yeah.
All right, man. Any final words? I'll kick it over to you for sure.
Yeah, thank you again for everyone listening here. Thank you again for everyone showing up on the spaces. And yeah, we keep doing what we do, and we love you guys. And yeah, until next time. Bye bye.
Absolutely, guys. Have a great one. All the love to everyone. Take care.